Afternoon everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join this virtual presentation today. It's been fantastic to be invited back to Kentigo to take part in this new virtual series of events. It's been some years since I've done my last event, and it's actually been quite good today to come into the office to give you a bit of a view of our offices rather than seeing the inside of my house today. As you probably guessed, my name is Alan Anderson and I'm a Senior Technical Consultant in PwC's Enterprise Strategy and Transformation team. As a team, we support organisations to define, design and implement their transformation programmes globally across a wide range of technologies. My personal area of focus is actually in commerce, service and marketing transformations, and I work with clients across the EMEA. Over the next 30 minutes, I'm going to be walking through the different approaches to architecture and application development, and actually exploring the emergence of modular architecture as a mechanism to delivering long-term transformational goals within an organisation. The most common definition of a digital transformation is the adoption of digital technologies to replace non-digital or manual processes, with either digital processes or replacing older digital technologies with newer digital technologies. As an industry, we normally see these as multi-year programs that span from the back to front offices. These are typically broken up into front and back office transformation programs, with middle office delivered alongside one of these to facilitate the required integration capabilities. However, this is probably the most misleading view of what a digital transformation is in reality. This is because the expectation is that the transformation you're about to undertake is the act of simply replacing one legacy technology or manual process with a brand new digital solution. This sets the expectation that the technology is the only thing that will change as a result. This mindset is one of the most common reasons for projects like this to fail, not realising that the processes and solutions of the past are not always suitable for a modern environment, and have most likely woven technology around the business process over time. To put this in context, these typically custom developed or highly customised monolithic solutions have had to be customised further and further to support increasingly complex capabilities emerging from the rise of touch-enabled phones and tablets, native and hybrid apps, social media, augmented reality, digital commerce, the explosion of the Internet of Things, and obviously the emergence of best-of-breed solutions. Today, there are over 15,000 analyst-recognised vendors, all competing for specific elements of a technical solution. What this really means is these applications have had to evolve rapidly over time to adjust to a marketplace they were never originally built for and are creaking under the pressure of what is being asked of them. Transformation has truly delivered long-term success is when an organisation takes the three critical lenses to the heart of its transformation. BXT is an approach I take when undertaking transformation projects to align the business and technology with the experience of the user. This delivers suitable business transformation alongside technology transformation to ensure the problems faced by an organisation today are not merely transferred into a new set of technologies to be dealt with tomorrow. If we take a second to explore these three lenses, we can view them as follows. The business change required to shift the way an organisation operates. New customer expectations and new technologies will ultimately affect how an organisation has to manage, structure and operate. The human, physical and virtual interfaces required to create a useful and engaging experience. While in lockdown for many organisations, virtual is the only way to engage with its users. It's important to understand that digital transformations still have a human element to them, and while a process could be automated or dehumanized, it might not be best for the organisation to do so. And finally, technology. The technology required to embed a solution and create a scale to support the organisational objectives in the future. What we've seen at PwC while we work with clients is that while transformations can be successful when not all of these elements are brought together, the best and most successful transformations take a combination of BX and T and bring them together to form an absolutely forward-thinking solution. A central thing we have also seen in recent years is a changing composition of the programme team. Transformations of the past were typically IT driven, which is in keeping with the original definition of a digital transformation we've just shown. Today, transformations are a mix of business and technology stakeholders who are involved in the process from design all the way through to delivery, which is the reason why we see a lot more business outcome driven transformation strategies being implemented and realised by organisations, But more importantly, we are seeing positive post-delivery adoption of the technology due to the co-created nature of the transformation process, due to an increased sense of ownership by the business users. It's not just a case of IT delivering something in isolation, throwing it over to business users and hoping that they got it right. The impact of business stakeholders in transformation can clearly be seen if we look at the change in mindset of IT, which is fundamentally transitioned from being a traditional blocker of rapid delivery to becoming an increasing enabler. Gone forever are the days of big bang, waterfall, fully formed delivery programs that take years before they start to realize benefit. And welcome to the age of business benefit aligned releases, continuous improvement, and development cycles with the willingness to fail fast and early in the effort to adopt and test new capabilities and how they help the business move forward. This working relationship between technology and business units, working together towards one common goal, is one of the key driving forces for some of the most successful transformation projects today. It's also one of the biggest challenges in a program too, because what you're trying to do is bring teams that have necessarily worked together before in the past, form a common goal and actually work towards that. If we carry on that theme, the move away from monolithic platforms to a more modular patchwork quilt of technologies has led to a rise in the expectation of business users in terms of the speed to market and rapid availability and access to new capabilities. When we look at recent projects undertaken, we see 11 key areas where there have been fundamental changes to the expectations, and we can clearly see how these have impacted the expectations set in new transformation projects today. Some of the main themes, apart from architectural approach, include the way we see organizations contract and fund their programs. We see an increasing move away from a license model with a high point of entry to a license and consumption model with a lower cost of entry. There's a reduced reliance on physical hardware and an increased adoption of cloud-based virtual hardware, with scalable burst capacity, availability of services based on that cloud architecture, with the shift towards a configuration of off-the-shelf solutions, with an absolute aversion towards customization and self-build in an effort to accelerate velocity to marketplaces of new services and business offerings. If we take that and we apply it to our definition of digital transformation, that definition itself transforms into something more relatable to what we see organizations experience as part of their transformation journeys today. The solutions being replaced are normally customized around a predetermined business process. As part of the redesign phase of the program, businesses start to reorganize their processes, looking at opportunities for automation and enrichment of the technology solution to provide new capability and opportunity for differentiation into the organization and the marketplace. They also started to look at the way in which they operate from a business perspective and how they see their customers today and tomorrow. Alongside this, they're also looking to move to cloud-based architectures rather than remaining on on-premise architectures. This fundamental change is that it's not only the technology that changes, it is the way the people, processes, and technologies coexist in a way that didn't exist previously to deliver a true transformation. This is the part of the presentation where I start to show my age a little bit. When I started my career, the concept of a golden disk was what defined a business. It was a hard code software which contained the business IP for your digital organization. Something we kept in a fireproof safe and protected at all costs, and only ever resided on our own private servers. Now, there is no gold disk in a safe because times have changed. Business IP isn't the code you write, it's a mix of off-the-shelf and custom solutions you configure and adopt, how you get them talking to each other, and the business processes you build around them. The concept of a gold disk exists, but not how we knew it before. And why is that? The technology marketplace is accelerating at phenomenal speed due to technology advances and shift in vendor approaches. Previously, a handful of big technologies would dominate the market across front and back offices, which would inevitably lock organizations into a single vendor strategy with a roadmap aligned to that big vendor and a series of acquisitions and product enhancements released generally in major versions, yearly or bi-yearly. Over the past 6 to 8 years, there's been a rise in laser-focused organizations built around a single business problem and developing solutions to target that issue and that issue alone, or part of the technology process extremely well, be it digital asset management, content presentation, or CRM. In the marketing technology space alone, there are over 8,000 different vendors. Digital transformation is intrinsically embedded in the ability to rapidly scale and evolve the business needs. We've seen an escalation in the maturity of technology concepts and emergence of more and more technology opportunities that organizations are struggling to keep up with and require an architecture that supports this rapidly changing environment. So let's turn our attention to how organizations are changing to address this new issue. So what is a modular architecture? To understand what a modular architecture is, it's actually important to understand what it isn't and also what it's built upon. Let's first look at monolithic architectures. Those going through digital transformations undoubtedly have several monolithic applications within their estate. Older software normally housed in legacy on-premise servers, typically out of support, or custom software that has been built upon over the years to the point that there's little or no documentation in existence, and it can only be serviced by a smaller and smaller number of key developers. These are actually the projects that us as technologists actually love to get involved with, because by unpicking and unraveling these custom and legacy technologies, you actually start to get an understanding of how the business has evolved over the years. And from that, you can actually take a lot of information into the transformation project to understand where it's wanting to go to. But saying that, technology moves on, and so do coding standards. This isn't to say that the solution that we're looking at isn't developed properly. 9 times out of 10, it's been well developed. It's just got to the point that it's not fit to keep up with the increasing needs and velocity the organization require, with new capabilities to be delivered, as well as the rapidly changing cybersecurity requirements. It's not a bad thing. Nothing can last forever. If we now look at how that monolithic architecture is composed, it's effectively a single application with a single codebase having multiple modules. These modules are in turn divided into either technical functions or business functions. They are typically delivered by a single supplier, and organizations have relied on these vendors to provide a product roadmap and continuously improving their functionality and capabilities to enhance their core offering. It used to be a single or indivisible solution that locked you into a single vendor. I say used to because monolithic applications and architectures still have their place within a modern modular architecture approach, and that's because modern vendors in this space understand that interoperability and integration with the smaller, laser-focused vendors I spoke about earlier in the marketplace is actually a symbiotic relationship that they need to maintain for the benefit of their customers and to ensure that their product is still part of a customer's end-state solution. So now we've explained monolithic architecture, let's turn our head away and actually look towards microservice architectures, which is considered to be a newer, more agile approach to application development, as it contains a combination of smaller autonomous services, which each service is self-contained and applied to a single business function. Microservice architecture is highly common within new technology platforms and synonymous with modern development approaches. A shift towards DevOps and favours organizations who are trying to become more agile. Unlike monolithic applications and architecture, microservices deliver a decoupled architecture, an application that aims to detach the user interface from the business logic which is contained within containers from the underlying data. This allows each of the offerings to be independent and loosely coupled that can be independently deployed within the business to deliver a piece of functionality. This approach actually breaks down each capability and processes into its own box and uses APIs to pass data and information to each part. This allows for non-stop deployment of complicated solutions, which actually lowers the barrier to adopting new technologies while retaining continuity of service. Within a technology development context, it's actually a great way to work. It allows flexibility in the solution while allowing agile development practices to be realized and allows for scaling the solution in line with business needs. However, microservice applications and architectures are actually formed under a very specific context that the business intends to develop and maintain the software it requires. This again goes back to the gold disc view I discussed earlier. You actually own the code, it's your intellectual property, and you're responsible for the maintenance and future development of it. And this is the greatest trap that most organizations fall into during the transformation project. They may be rallied around changing the organization to fit the technology, which is no small task for a business to change the way they operate. but they end up changing the processes, building a highly tailored solution, locking themselves into a custom solution without realizing it. And there's always a risk that this results in a solution that isn't as scalable as expected. What you need to remember is that microservices is a software development approach deployed by organizations who wish to build a technology offering. For 90% of organizations going through a transformation project, that is the polar opposite of what they're trying to achieve. However, there will always be the need for custom applications to be built, and microservices offers the ideal route to delivering something that can be integrated seamlessly with third-party vendors and data sources in the future. I'm not trying to say that microservices are a bad thing, and that's completely the opposite of what I'm trying to say. But what I'm trying to say is that it is okay to buy third-party solutions that are built using microservice architecture, but you don't want to build that as part of your organizational strategy. So let's actually look at what modular architecture is. Recently I've actually been using Lego as an example to explain modular architecture to customers that I'm working with. Since lockdown, I've been sharing my home office space with my 5-year-old son. It's actually become quite a common sight on conference calls for him to be building away quietly at the boxes and boxes of Lego we have in this shared space while I'm on the calls. Recently, I was sitting on a conference call waiting for it to start, and I was just watching him as he took a police station set that he had and added a jail to it that he had built himself. And the call started and I turned around and thought nothing more of it. After that call was done, I turned around and the jail had actually been added to. What he had done was he had taken the wheels and the base from one of his trucks so we could go into the back room and distract my wife. Shortly afterwards, and again after another call, he had come in, was pottering around with his Lego, and it had a set of rotors from a helicopter. And the reason why he explained to me was that it was so that he could fly upstairs and annoy his older brother. Now, if we take Lego as an example, it's a modular technology or tool. It's designed to unleash creativity and to have endless possibilities. There's no such thing as incompatibility in the Lego universe. In fact, if you have Lego at home, and like me, I've got kids that are 5 and 12. We've got Duplo, Lego, and Technic, and you can actually interoperate between them and actually build something that uses them all. Indeed, the name Lego is an abbreviation of 2 Danish words, which literally mean play. Not everybody is what modular architecture is in a nutshell. It's a collection of monolithic platforms, SaaS solutions, and custom-built components wrapped up to form an effective solution that address business needs. It's built on the principles of microservice architecture, using APIs as a common glue that holds the solution together, but in a decoupled manner that allows the solution to scale and take on new functional capabilities. Modern development approaches for each of these building blocks formed with API and integration at the core plays into that principle playing well together. But what completely is different from a microservice strategy is that rather than those building blocks being built components yourself, these are different third-party suppliers in the marketplace with their own product roadmaps, their own delivery teams, and their ability to scale their solution for you in the future and provide you with that roadmap. But why is this? Over the years, niche vendors have realized they could never compete effectively, being master of everything a customer needed. The development teams required to support that was absolutely monumental, and also reduce effectiveness and speed to market. Instead, they focus on doing one thing and one thing extremely well. They've learned to coexist with more monolithic solutions and architectures as organizations warm to the idea and dip their toe into modular architecture, which has formed the basis of successful transformation projects today. The way in which we're being forced to deal with COVID, using the UK as an example, is important in showing one of the main strengths to a modular architecture due to the changes organizations are having to make to remain serving their end users. If we take telecoms as an example, telecoms clients have taken advantage of scalable cloud architectures in which their solutions are built on to provide uninterrupted services to their users, or take advantage of flexible contact center technology to support working from home operators to provide continuity in service management. We have seen financial services and airlines introducing chatbots and service automation to reduce call volumes while operating reduced workforce contact centers due to physical limitations on staff numbers in premises due to social distancing. Other examples include traditionally bricks and mortar retailers introducing new direct-to-consumer commerce capabilities, and selling through alternative delivery channels such as Amazon, temporarily using logistics and third-mile service providers to deliver to their clients who are unable to shop in their stores due to mandatory closures, or have been using their services so much they need to burst that capability and bring in additional third-party suppliers to help them deal with the demand. These are great examples of organisations who have already got ahead of the curve and embracing modular architecture to give them temporary scale and the ability to offer services they did not offer before. Doesn't mean that they're going to continue offering them in the future, but for now it's ideal for their business. But for every good example, there are plenty of bad examples, such as contact centres which couldn't handle increased spikes in inquiries, and the businesses were unable to implement more effective IVR deflection or chatbot automation. There are retailers out there who rely fully on footfall in bricks and mortar locations and were not able to implement a digital storefront and last mile delivery service. Sadly, the result can be seen most noticeably in the high street recently, where we have seen several organisations close their doors, battling to open them again. They haven't been able to pivot like their competitors due to the rigidness of their architectures or inability to be able to implement new capabilities as quickly as the business requires. What separates modular architecture from microservice architecture is that modular architecture supports the idea that in each business domain, be it marketing, service, finance, HR, commerce, logistics, or reporting, there's a wealth of service providers that offer solutions out of the box that can be implemented rapidly, or in some cases, where an organisation really wants to stand out from their competitors, link multiple vendors in that space to form a solution that is best of breed in every way. The major benefit is that due to the SaaS nature of these services, they come with compelling consumption or user-based license models, which support the ability to spin up solutions quickly, but when the business need is less, allow for a scaled-back solution ready to be spun up when the need arises without complicated and expensive upkeep. Finance and HR are actually great examples of areas where the innovation curve is low and they're very mature markets. So we tend to see more monolithic technology or single vendors provide out-of-the-box solutions to meet a client's need in that domain, and typically there isn't a lot of innovation that happens in this area. Whereas in customer engagement and marketing domains, there's a bigger choice of vendors, and that is where we typically see organisations focus their efforts in terms of differentiation in the marketplace. But before we explore that further, let's look at why it's so important. When an organisation undertakes a digital transformation, what are the main questions they're trying to answer? While architecture approaches are important, we don't often see organisations and businesses we work with sit us down and ask us, what architectural module should we adopt? Should we use single or multi-vendors? What about microservices, and should we build it ourselves? While important, these are enabling technologies, not the answer to the question digital transformation seeks the answer. And what we're trying to understand there is, what does the business need? Now, if we look at the most common pain points they boil down to some common themes. First up, the platform is inflexible and the business is running suboptimal processes with workarounds to achieve the desired outcomes. This is typically where we see a lot of examples of where automation could be implemented to reduce the need to do the task manually at all, or automation part of the process to make it more efficient for the business user or customer. But sometimes the answer is actually quite easier. Do we need to have such a complicated process, or can we reduce it down? Moving on, the platform is unreliable. This is typically due to a faulty process or data flow, which breaks due to incompatible software or security updates, or even a daisy chain of issues across the user and data journeys that forces users to complete manual processes. This often goes hand in hand with not being fit to scale. We used to see this across the news when Black Friday and Cyber Monday crossed the Atlantic, and we had people having to queue to get on the websites, sites crashing under traffic, and applications timing out when new products were launched. It's not that common anymore to see this on the news. In fact, last week we had one of the biggest events in digital times that most people were unaware of. On the 13th of November, there was a release of a next-gen games console, and two of the biggest games globally launched, triggering massive downloads of game and console updates. Add in a significant proportion of the UK working from home, and it barely registered as one of the biggest strains of the network in the past 12 months due to the advantages of burst capability of cloud architectures and the way in which modern applications are built. Taking a long time to develop is common, as I've already stated today, and that just isn't because the solution requires longer to develop. While this is part of the issue, it is actually associated with testing and deployment activities that come with it. Modern architectures are smaller solutions which require less solution and integration testing as well as development. This is a monumental advantage of this new approach. Previously, organizations had to prepare months in advance for releases and release once or twice a week. Now there are organizations releasing once or twice an hour using continuous development principles. Doesn't work well with others is also common due to the nature of the solution you're typically replacing. Monolithic solutions and architectures are built to be self-contained and optimize the use of its own ecosystem of business and technical capabilities above everything else. They were typically not built to support a plug-and-play architecture that allowed businesses to swap out capability in the major application and replace it with more agile, best-of-breed solutions. This is also true when we take into consideration the tightly coupled data models that underpin them. Lack of understanding of the future roadmap is as much a business as it is a technology provider problem. Organizations who are locked into a single tech provider are at the mercy of this global roadmap, which isn't typically agile and able to react quickly to changing technology advancement and user needs. Organizations that have attempted to undertake some contained microservice implementation or SaaS solutions typically do so in isolated, based on business unit or in global solutions on a regional level. This leads to fragmentation and lack of clarity over what the future technology solution looks like. This architectural approach may look complicated at high level, and technically it can be more complicated than a single vendor solution to manage, as there are often more vendors involved, and there's also an increased data and integration requirement to orchestrate a journey across the different platforms. However, this is to be expected, and the important note to consider here is that these vendors are building their solutions for interoperability with other technologies now and have tried and tested and proven integration approaches. More often or not, they have out-of-the-box configurators and connectors that allow low or no-code integration approaches to be implemented. This is one of the main differences between a modular architecture and a microservice architecture, and is the reason why we see so many organizations embrace this fully. Microservice architectures lend themselves to complex architectures and require their own integration ecosystem to orchestrate the decoupled business logic, and in the most part, this is down to an organization to design and maintain. There is no quick win or proven delivery approach. As part of this presentation, I've tried to highlight the fundamental benefit of modular architecture is that it supports a wide range of best-of-breed solutions and ensures that an organization has the flexibility to rapidly develop using tried and tested and open architectures that emphasize configuration over customization. There will always be a need for a custom module, and this isn't about killing off custom development completely. It's about ensuring that when it's done in a scalable way that aligns to the key areas of differentiation of an organization. For example, an algorithm that defines the risk associated with lending money in financial services, or how a delivery or pickup and collection slots are prioritized and allocated in the case of high volume digital retailers. At PwC, our approach takes the principles of BXT I talked about earlier and applies them to the design phase of a project, identifying the capabilities needed for an organization to differentiate in the digital experience. Technology is often an enabler of organizational differentiation rather than a delivery agent. The key is how you orchestrate a journey across different solutions that delivers true business benefit, and more importantly, how quickly you can capitalize on and stay ahead of the competition. This is a new goal disc in action. This is the biggest difference to a microservice architecture, especially in dealing with modern user engagement, as customers are no longer engaging on platforms an organization owns, like a website, a portal, or applications. They also engage across a number of channels, often at the same time. A modular architecture is built to accommodate decoupled interactions with users across multiple channels, both digital and non-digital, while still remaining connected due to the connected but separate nature of the underlying data models, while leveraging best-of-breed technology vendors. So once we've gone through a digital transformation, we've got a modular platform that's allowing us to scale. But let's actually look at what's next. What are the next set of business capabilities? And why is it important of maintaining and building this scalable solution, this API and integration at the core? Firstly, this allows an organization to plug and play new business and IT functions with ease into a scaled solution that uses a mixture of application and technology types. But let's actually look at the functional components that we're probably going to be looking at in the future. Now, there's this thing called the Gartner hype cycle, and if it's to be believed, the next 5 years is going to see massive strides in multi-experiences, artificial intelligence maturity, and the emergence of biodegradable sensors. And as a technologist, I'm genuinely excited at the speed of these technology advances. To put this in perspective, 2 years ago, I spoke with clients about an emerging trend in blockchain-powered advertising. This year, PwC's blockchain team are working with our clients on a global scale to understand how to apply blockchain in ad tech to increase transparency and address the potential $19 billion in fraud generated by automated bots and fraudulent players in the market. That's testament to how quickly this market is progressing, and that's the key benefit of a modular architecture. It gives you the ability to support whatever your customers and users demand and what the business needs in the future. And to conclude, I'm going to leave this with you as this is what the future holds for architecture. It's an extract from that same Gartner hype cycle, and it's describing the emergence of a new trend called composable enterprise, supported by a composite architecture. I'll take the time to point out that a composable enterprise is supported by modularity, efficiency, continuous improvement, and adaptive innovation, exactly the themes that we've talked about today. And on that note, seeing I've given away next year's presentation, thank you for listening.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm sure you enjoyed the session by Alan Anderson. And as promised, we do have Alan live with us in studio, who will answer some questions for us. So, hi, Alan. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. And in fact, I suspect you heard me singing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer a few moments ago.
I did, and I think it's still too early. That's a December thing.
I'm already in the festive spirit. Okay, but I'm sorry you had to hear my bad singing, so I apologize. So anyway, don't worry, I won't ask you to do any singing. We're just here to hear your expert opinion, and that's why I have a few questions for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Born ready, I know. So here we go. Alan, in your presentation, you defined what modular architecture means and also underlined that easy replaceability is the biggest benefit. Do you see any disadvantages of the modular architecture?
I don't think there are many disadvantages of modular architecture as such, but it does come with a series of challenges for an organization. We're certainly not seeing any of our clients regretting the move, but there are a few norms that they need to deal with. And it just sometimes finds it to become a little bit difficult to get their heads around at the early stages. A couple of examples would be there's an increased importance of enterprise architecture teams. It's now a global roadmap and selecting the right technologies to invest in. There's increased complexity in the management of vendors, which is always something. The adoption of best of breed brings more vendors into the mix. Content and experience is a good example. Content is a capability that experience delivers alongside others. And making the right technology choices. The ability to plug and play is brilliant, as others have said in the conferences. But if it doesn't work or demand dies, you can just remove the capability. So yeah, I just think it brings its own challenges rather than disadvantages.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Now diving into the next question. In your presentation, you mentioned that there were several factors or blockers that are typical for legacy mindset as compared to the digital mindset. What is the most impactful one, in your opinion?
So I suppose others have touched on. I've just realised that the lights went off in the office. Thankfully, not in my room. So others have touched already upon this in previous Q&As and their sessions. Is the fact that the marketplace is maturing so quickly. It's seeing a significant growth of new vendors entering the marketplace. The list I went through earlier is the sum of all the parts. The mindset has to change quite significantly to deliver a mindset for the future. And I can sympathize with them. Unless the IT team are contractors, they've never gone through a digital transformation before. Whereas if you look at my role and others that do what I do, I spend my career going from transformation to transformation, doing it over and over again. So I'm used to it. With the sheer amount of laser-focused solution vendors in the market, making sure to pick the right one's a really daunting task. If I look at my team, we spend a lot of time researching and taking the time to understand, the use cases of the technologies, the capabilities they deliver, and understand how they play well with others. So it's about making sure it's cutting edge and not bleeding edge. Mm-hmm. So that agile and open mindset is really key, because some of these vendors have only been in the market for 1 or 2 or possibly 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing your insight, as well as also that having that based on your experience too. So into the next question, what is the biggest challenge that companies should be aware of when transforming their experience into modular architecture?
I think this is one that we experience over and over, and that's decommissioning and cutovers, especially when integration and data are concerned. If they're ignored, they can become costly because they require parallel running of platforms until the transformation is complete. That's why we typically favor decommissioning as part of the benefits plan of the organization. So, by keeping that awareness at the front and forefront of their minds in terms of delivering the benefit is amplified once this is complete. This really focuses the teams to complete their decommissioning fully, rather than leaving them as like a partly closed down solution, or dealing with it at the end of a project.
Okay, great, thank you. And rounding things off with the last question. Also based on your experience, how challenging is it for customers to move from an integrated architecture to a modular architecture? And tying into that, what advice would you share for customers in this situation?
Listen, any transformation is going to be challenging. Over the years, we've seen more and more business and marketing users engaged in the process. And with that, we're seeing a completely different type of energy being brought to a team. I think it's because they're the end users, and they get more and more excited to see the benefits being realized as the new capabilities get turned on. And this actually has a positive impact on the IT teams, as I said. Mm-hmm. The advice I would give is to definitely define and design and agree some guiding principles up front during your design phase, and use them as your North Star throughout the project. I know it sounds like a really simple idea, but as you get deeper into the process, you can see them, you can nearly use those to challenge decisions and keep on track. And this is why we use, when we start a program, we often refer to it as the art of the possible. It's a session which removes the constraints of today thinking, and works forwards from there. From a technical perspective, also, getting the data and integration models right, and choosing the technologies that complement each other to avoid the amount of customization you do, is certainly something that we would advocate to our customers.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you for sharing those insights. I'm sure people in the audience are definitely taking note of that. As well as if anybody has questions in the audience for Alan, please do share it on the Q&A panel. But Alan, thank you for joining us today. Your session was really great. It educated me even more so. And we'll talk very soon in the near future, I hope. Have a great day.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.